The definition for us of kindness is that we're really concerned about the user experience. So the idea is that we're only going to really serve an ad when a user's done or disengaged with the publisher content. The idea is that no one is going to a publisher website to engage with an advertiser message. They're going to that content to engage with that content. So what we're doing in practice is really focus on that intent and time of the user. So what that means is we're only serving an ad when we know that user is either done or disengaged with that publisher content, and then we'll serve an ad at that inflection point where they're more receptive to the ad, and that will lead to better user experience and better performance.
So empathy is a clear feature of kindness that Wunderkind embodies. How does empathy play out in terms of designing ad experiences that also perform, but again, without being intrusive?
So for empathy for us, that is the core of what we're doing from a design perspective. So at Wunderkind, we're really focused on putting ourselves in the user's shoes. The user, what are they trying to do and what are they trying to get out of that site? So what that looks like in practice is only serving ads when a user's done or disengaged with content, really hitting that inflection point, and really serving an ad when it's in this contextual relevant environment. That is highly important because the idea of that you want to be able to serve an ad, it needs to be contextually relevant for that user. That will lead to, again, better performance for the advertiser.
To dive into that a little bit more, it seems like from most of the conversations I have about this topic, the balance between respecting users' privacy and their desire to just get to the content they want and the performance of the advertising that supports that content sometimes is positioned at odds. How do you see those two maybe not being at odds?
So the idea is that if you respect the user and then not interrupting them during their content consumption journey, that will lead to better performance for the advertiser. And that's what our data shows. We've been doing this for about 6.5, 7 years, so we're relatively new and nascent to the space, but we're able to get a lot of traction in the space because of the performance we drive. So what we're really focused on, again, is that user experience leading to better performance for the advertiser. What that means in practice is we are able to drive anything from a upper funnel metric perspective, viewability, click-through rate, video completion rate, all the way down to those mid to lower funnel metrics. So getting users back to the site, driving low cost per visits, and ultimately the holy grail is driving ROAS or some sort of outcome for the advertiser. And that idea really resonates with the advertiser because we're really solving those two things, that user experience, not interrupting the user, but more importantly for the advertiser is driving performance or an actual outcome for that brand or marketer.
So Adam, there's a sense that embrace of user experience as part of the model for advertising has really arrived at this moment. What do you think has taken so long?
I think the biggest thing, and it's still an issue today, but it's this ideology and ethos that this quantity over quality method. So the idea is that everyone from both the publisher side and the advertiser side and the marketer side is really honed in on that quantity over that quality aspect, meaning they're all about serving as many impressions as they can to monetize the publisher site. And then from an advertiser perspective, they don't really care or haven't cared about that user experience. So we're able, again, to bridge that gap. And we actually ran a research and advertising study. It was about kindness in ads, really back in 2023. And that study was really focused on the user experience. And what that data showed, so we ran it with 1,000 people, 1,000 respondents. And what the data showed is that if you hit a user or serve an ad when they are on the page or interrupt during a content consumption experience, that leads to lower affinity with the actual brand. So meaning they won't want to purchase that brand or that product. Ultimately, what it all comes back to, and 90% of the respondents really embrace and want to, again, only be served an ad when they're in that right mindset when they're done and disengaged with that publisher content. So it just leads to better brand affinity, better metrics, better brand favorability with that advertiser, being able to serve that ad in that right moment.
So Adam, nothing convinces like that kind of research and data about what works in terms of empathy-led engagement. Last piece of advice for advertisers and publishers who really want to embrace that.
Yeah.
What should they do?
So I think from an advertiser perspective, they really need to hone in on that, again, that quantity over quality. Like, for example, what does it take X amount of impressions to get that message across? Or can they get that message across with just fewer ads? So again, embracing that user experience and not inundating a user with hundreds of ads when they're on that page. Really important because it leads to lower prices for them, lower cost per site visits, etc. From a publisher perspective, really comes back to the site and UX experience. So what sites need to be really focused on is about, again, not inundating the user with the ads or a lot of ads when they're on that site. It's really about scaling it back and really monetizing the site in the way that leads to that user and putting that user first.